Welcome. Today we're going to do something super useful. We're going to take on one of those questions that can really make your heart sink in a GCSE biology paper, a big, full 16 marker. But don't worry, we're going to pull it apart piece by piece, and I'm going to show you that the secret to smashing it isn't just about knowing your biology, it's about learning to think like an examiner.
All right, so you open your exam paper and you see this. Multiple graphs, a whole bunch of data, and 16 marks just sitting there. It's so easy to feel a little bit overwhelmed, right? But honestly, it's not as scary as it looks. Think of these graphs as just pieces of a puzzle. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly how to put them together. So let's get into it. We're going to deconstruct this question from an examiner's perspective, breaking it down part by part to see exactly where every single mark comes from. First up is the calculation. Now, these are often the easiest marks you can get, as long as you read the question and look at the data really carefully. Let's get these points in the bag. Okay, so part 1, 8.1, gives us this graph. It asks for the number of years that both of these species were around at the same time. If you look at the slide, you can see those two shaded bars. They represent the time each mammal existed. The question is basically just asking us how long is the bit where these two bars overlap. So, how do we do it? Well, this slide shows the exact method the mark scheme is looking for. First, find the start of that overlap. You can see Brontotherium appears at 38.5 million years ago. Then, you find the end of the overlap, which is when it goes extinct at 36 million years ago. Step 2, just a simple subtraction. And boom, that gives us our answer, 2.5 million years. Now, the mark scheme gives 1 mark for showing your calculation, that's subtraction, and a second mark for getting the right answer. So what's the key takeaway? Always show you're working. That's 2 marks in the bag. Simple as that. All right, we've banked those calculation marks. Now we move from just reading data to actually applying what you know about biology. This next bit is all about reasoning, and it's your chance to really show off your understanding of how ecosystems work. So here's the question. Andrewsarchus was a carnivore, and Brontotherium was a herbivore. How on earth could the carnivore going extinct lead to the herbivore also going extinct? I mean, it sounds backwards, doesn't it? You'd think the herbivore population would just explode. This question is a clever test of whether you can think about those complex knock-on effects in an ecosystem. And this is a brilliant example of how in biology there isn't always just one right answer. The mark scheme actually allows for a few different logical arguments. For instance, maybe a new predator evolved, one that Andrewsarchus used to keep away. Or how about this? Maybe another herbivore that Andrewsarchus also used to hunt suddenly had a population boom, leading to way more competition for food. Or, and this is a classic ecological story, maybe the Brontotherium population did boom without its predator, but then it ate all of its food, and the population crashed because of starvation. Any of those logical chains would get you the full 3 marks. Okay, next up is a 3-mark question that's pure recall. It's asking a pretty straightforward question. Why is our knowledge of really ancient species so incomplete? This is a direct test of what you know about the limits of fossil evidence. And here are the answers straight from the mark scheme. To get full marks, you could mention that older fossils are just buried way deeper, which makes them a lot harder to find. Another great point is that geological activity, earthquakes, volcanoes, erosion, it's had much more time to destroy them. And a fantastic final point is that many of the earliest life forms were soft-bodied. They didn't have bones or shells, so they just decayed without a trace. Knowing these is a really solid way to pick up another 3 marks. All right, deep breaths. It's time for the main event, the big 6-mark evaluation question. This is where it gets tricky. You have to combine data analysis with critical thinking to build a balanced argument. This is what separates a good answer from a truly great one. So, here's the statement from a student that you need to evaluate. The data in Figure 9 shows that humans caused mass extinctions. Now, your job isn't to just agree or disagree. Your job is to be a detective and critically look at how well the data itself actually supports this claim. And this is the absolute golden rule, you guys. You must use only the evidence you see right here in these 4 graphs. This is a test of your ability to interpret this specific data set, not a test of everything you've ever learned about extinctions. So let's break down what this data is actually telling us. So, a top-level answer has to be balanced. On one hand, to support the statement, you'd point out that in Australia, North America, and Madagascar, the survival of large mammals takes a nosedive right after humans arrive.
A really smart point to add is that because these extinctions happen at different times, it suggests it wasn't a single global event like an ice age. But, and this is crucial, a top answer has to argue against the statement too. The most important scientific point you can make is that correlation does not prove causation. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean one caused the other. You should also point out the data's limits. It only talks about large mammals, and look at Africa, the decrease there is tiny. Plus, the graphs tell us nothing about other possible causes, like climate change. A great answer explores both sides, using specific examples from the graphs.
We are on the home stretch now. We've handled the calculation, the reasoning, and the big evaluation. Let's just lock in these last 2 marks to get a perfect score on the whole question.
The final part is a quick-fire 2-marker. It asks for 1 evolutionary disadvantage and 1 advantage of a mass extinction. Again, this is all about remembering specific biological concepts. The mark scheme is super precise here. For the disadvantage, the key phrase you need is a reduction in the gene pool, which just means you're losing genetic diversity. For the advantage, the perfect answer is that extinctions open up new opportunities in the ecosystem, which allows for the evolution of new species to fill those gaps. If you can use the word speciation here, you're golden. Using those specific terms shows the examiner you really know your stuff.
So after breaking down all 16 marks, what's the big takeaway here? What is the real secret to turning a question that looks terrifying into a perfect score?
And it all comes down to this. The mark scheme isn't just for checking your answers when you're done, it's a roadmap. It shows you the structure of a perfect answer, the exact terminology examiners are looking for, and the logical steps to get full marks. When you understand how it works, you're not just learning biology anymore, you're learning the language of the exam. And that is how you unlock success.